So this material that I bring to you tonight, much of this is going to be new to most of you, all right? And it's material that allows you to have discussions with people in terms of the pill and in terms of other things, purely from a scientific standpoint, all right? And this is the science that undergirds Humana Vitae. This is the science that John Paul II looked at before he wrote the Theology of the Body. Now, it wasn't all available, but he looked at what was there before. And this is the material that sort of holds the rest of that up. Because the rest of it's really beautiful, but you know what? If I've been in this culture where sex is degraded, it's cheap, I don't know how to come at the question. So this allows you to have a way to do that, okay? This is probably one of the most fun talks I do because I know that there's so much that you're going to get from it, and you're going to leave here and your head's going to be spinning because it happens all the time. I mean, I watch people's eyes just go, oh my God, I can't believe she just said, what did she just say? Which is why it's really good he's taping this. So, how did I get into this? Because what I do in terms of post-abortion healing wouldn't necessarily indicate that this is what I do. But I got into it, it's sort of an accidental thing. As Jack said, we have 6 kids, and when I had our 4th child, I met a woman through a priest friend of ours who lived near me, but we hadn't met. And we became very good friends, and our kids went to the same school, so we walked them to school, and we babysat for each other and did all this stuff. And then when we had our 5th kids, they were born about 2 months apart, but when we expected our 6th kids, they were due the same day. And I thought that was kind of weird, and I didn't really think it would happen. She and I were both on our parish council, and so I said to the parish council, well, the March meeting is going to be at St. Mary's Hospital because Joan and I are going to be there, and they went on. 2 women with pregnancy brains serving on the parish council. This is charming. So, you don't know how this plays out, so my daughter's birthday is coming up soon, and I went into labor at midnight on March 23rd, and between the 23rd and 24th, and she was born about 7 a.m. on March 24th. And lo and behold, before she was born, Joan is in the next room. All right, she's in labor. But John took a nap, so John's birthday is actually the 25th, but they are born within 24 hours of each other. So, okay, one of those things that you tuck away, weird, no explanation for it, okay? I belong to a group called the Association of Pre- and Perinatal Psychology and Health. And this is the most eclectic group of people I know. It is by far the most pro-life group I belong to, but they don't like me to say that, all right? There are researchers, there are mental health professionals, there are birth companions, there are midwives, there are cellular biologists. I mean, this is an eclectic group of people. And they all believe that babies begin at conception, with a few who think they start before that. I can deal with this. This is okay. As opposed to the people who aren't sure when you're human, There, many years ago in the pro-life movement, there was someone in Milwaukee who was talking about the fact that our children weren't human until we really made a contract with them, and some of us who were somewhat cynical suggested that we should wait until they were at least 18 and see if it turned out all right, because then at least you could get rid of them if it didn't, But that awareness, and so I got to this conference, and I always learn a great deal at this conference. And on my way home, I was reading a book on the anthropology of mothering written by a woman by the name of Sarah Hrdy, H-R-D-Y. And she was talking about how we women cycle together and why we cycle together, and I had my answer. And the fact of the matter is that very long ago, we women lived in communities, and I'll talk about this more, and you guys were out hunting and seafaring. You weren't home. And we were living with the other women, okay, in a confined area. And it was critical that we cycle together, because if I died, the only way my baby would survive is if there was another mother with a baby the same age who would nurse my baby. And newborn milk and toddler milk are very different, so it's not like I can have somebody who's got a kid who's 18 months or 2. They need to be very close in age. And what happened with Joan and with me was that we had become kin. Kin are relatives by intention. You don't have to be blood relatives for this to happen. When we spend time with women, as women, we will cycle together. But there are some things that interfere with that I'll talk about tonight. But this awareness of the dance that God put in place in terms of survival, all right? And that's what set off this whole talk. Because I was just like on fire with, how did this happen? What was the communication system? There's a scent communication system that I'll talk about. That's what happened. You know, I had observed that my sister-in-laws and I, the ones I spent time with, we also had kids pretty close in age, okay? Lots of people are aware of that. You know, you got cousins that all kind of line up, you know? Well, that's what this is about. If you spend time together, you oftentimes will either trigger each other's ovulation, but you're also in this dance, the chemistry dance, okay? So that's what set this off. And I will tell you that this is an amazing talk because so much of it is truly God-inspired. I was missing one piece at one point that I'll talk about in terms of sperm needing to be changed in a woman's body, but I didn't know what it was called, so I couldn't research it. And I pick up a book written by 2 Chilean abortionists on why abortion's a good thing. And they did this whole description of how conception happens. And there was my word. Okay? So there are pieces of this that have just, you know, somebody tells me something, there's a book, there's an article, whatever. And it's a work in progress. There's still stuff I'm finding, you know, and there's more and more being done in some respects, okay? So as we talk about this, the first thing I want to say to you is that the Chinese maintain that we are more likely to get the diseases of our grandmothers than the diseases of our mothers, okay? So this being grandma, that being mom, and that being you. Now, why is that? Well, it's the unfolding field of something called epigenetics, okay? And what that means is that outside influences can change the way that my genes work. It doesn't change my genes, it's just what gets turned on and what gets turned off, okay? And so, when Grandma was pregnant with Mom, all the ovum that I would ever have in my life, that you would ever have in your life, are already present in 20 weeks in pregnancy, about halfway through, all right? And initially, there's 6 million. Now think, this is a teeny tiny baby that's got 6 million potential ovum here. Time we're born, we're down to about 2 million. And by the time we get our periods, we're down to 400 to 450,000, all right? They die off in a natural process called apoptosis. They just kind of pop and disappear. Our body absorbs them. But what happened here is that what's going on in my body because of Grandma is changing future generations, okay? If Grandma had a disease of high stress or something, I may have inherited this, okay? If Mom is under high stress, we may come equipped with a stress brain, okay? From in utero on, because the chemistry is there. And we need to recognize how closely this relationship is between mothers and children, okay? We sort of live in a society that says we're kind of disembodied, you know? Everything happens up here in our brain, and our body's kind of a nuisance. You know, we got to feed it, and it gets sick, and you got to clothe it, and yeah, it's all up here. But that's not true. Our body is a very complex chemical, biochemical, what do I want to say? Machine, but not to degrade it, but simply it's made by God to work well if everything's going the way it's supposed to go, all right? And when we tinker with it or unintentionally things happen, this becomes an issue, okay? So that awareness of how interconnected we are early on. Now, there's more to this. And, you know, again, we live in a society where family doesn't count for much anymore. You know, it doesn't really matter where you came from, and, you know, people live out here and then they live in California, and they lose track of family systems. And we have got reproductive technology going on, all right? I was just reading an article. I have followed the issues of sperm donation and surrogacy. I'll say a little bit about that in a minute. But yesterday I found, I'm blown out of the water. In England, there is a sperm bank. The sole donor was the doctor who ran it, and they know that he has at least 600 offspring. The most I had heard about before was 150, all right? That enters into all kinds of things, but who am I, okay? I can't find out if I'm a sperm donor child because he's a number, all right? And when you look online, you see that people have gone to great lengths to try to find their biological father, knowing, like they'd know he was a student at Harvard or something, getting the yearbook from the year that they think, you know, that they were conceived, and writing to everybody there, all the males, saying, you know, by any chance, were you a sperm donor, blah, 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 blah. The sperm donor children can find each other if the mothers voluntarily report. And that's in part how they know that some of these people have 60 brothers and sisters, 150 brothers and sisters, okay? We can't even wrap our head around that, okay? Now, we are interconnected. Everybody in the world carries the mitochondria of their mothers. Now, those are the energy bodies in your cells, all right? Mitochondria. But it's more than that, not just your mothers. It's your mother's 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 mother, back to 7 lines of women, with the implication that there's an Eve. This is science. It's the work of a man by the name of Brian Sykes. He wrote The 7 Daughters of Eve, and then he wrote Adam's Curse. He's just done a lot of this following. Now, he thought maybe that there was something else that had that kind of continuity, and he was at a conference and there was another man named Sykes, and somebody said, are you guys related? He didn't think so, but then he got to wondering. And what he discovered is that the Y, okay, we women are XX, you guys are XY. The Y also has the same pattern. You men all carry your father's Y. And in fact, in the Ys, there are some subgroups. So for instance, in the Jewish community with the tradition of the priestly caste, if you look at the Ys of those men, there is a marker, you can pick them out. And interestingly, the other 2 places you see that marker is in the Lemba tribe in Africa and in the Igbo tribe in Nigeria, both of whom have the tradition of being descendants of the lost tribes of Israel. Okay? So this interconnection across generations, many generations. You know, at Christmas time, there's the reading that we usually snooze through about who begat, who begat, who begat, who cares. You know the reading? Well, God cares. And it's interesting, when you read it, there's both mother's lines and father's lines there, okay? You can, if you want to test this and see what your family line is, National Geographic has a site on their website, a little place, and you can, for about, I think it's about $100, they'll send you a swab, you send it back, and they will tell you which of the 7 lines of women you descended from and what their migrational pattern was, okay? I mean, these are fascinating. I haven't done it yet, but somebody showed it to me. It's really interesting because you can trace, you know, they went from here to here to here to here, because you find it in, you know, Ireland, and then you find this one over here, Germany, and whatever. And the same is true of the Y. So this question of who am I and where did I come from is an important question, all right? Not to be dismissed and blown off, as we so often do in terms of this, okay? Now, I want to say a little bit about men and women's brains and who we are, because that's kind of what this is also about, all right? Now, you remember that I said we women are XX and you guys are XY. Now, gentlemen, when you are confused by the women in your life, it's okay. Because we're really complex, all right? And on each one of these X's, there's 3,500 to 6,000 genes, and we got 2 of them. And in our bodies, they randomly assort. So identical twin girls are not identical bodies. Their body, it will be X number 1 random, and maybe it's her heart, and in her sister, it's X2. You guys, if you have an identical twin, your bodies are the same, because there isn't this balance, all right? You know, if you get confused by these confusing women in your life, if you think about a calico cat, you're familiar with calico cats, they got spots, and you know, one ear is one color and the other's the other color, and the paw is one color. Yeah, that's who we are. Those are all double X'd animals. Okay, so when you're confused, you just think about that. Go, yeah, no wonder I can't figure her out. Okay. Now we have 2 of these. The reality is that men are the more fragile of the sexes. Okay, you have 3,500 here to 6,000, but your Y only has 72. Okay, a little simpler. Not the balance here. The reality is that more boys are conceived than girls, but die in utero, at birth, early infancy, toddlerhood, adolescence. And in a well-balanced society, by the time we're adults, there's about 105 men to 100 women, consistently across the world. But we've tinkered with this in the places where sex selection abortion happens. And there's a wonderful book called Unnatural Selection, written by a woman, an American, who lives in China, and she's a science writer in China. And when she got there, she saw what was happening in terms of population tipping, both in China, in India, and North Korea. Those are the 3 major ones. It's happening here, but we're not quite so far down the road. And it's a fascinating book because she talks about the fact that in these countries, we are now probably between 120 to 140 men per 100 women. That means there are no brides, all right? The culture gets more violent because there's too much testosterone, there's no balance point. We know that in China, in rural areas, and in India, parents are selling their young daughters as wives and as prostitutes, you know, at 12, 13, 14. They leave because they're abused, but they can't go home because they don't know where home is. And so now there's a growing need in those countries. How do we minister to these women who are in very abusive relationships? But think about it, if I'm 12 or 13, I might not be super literate. And I've been put on a bus or taken by truck from my village. How do I know where my village is? You know, it's been 5 years. These are rural areas. This is an enormous country, okay? So we've got an ongoing issue here on many counts, okay? Now, we need to recognize that, you know, you guys really carry more genetic material from your mother than you do from your father in terms of this, okay? For whatever that's worth, but you just keep that in mind. And we want to talk a little bit about guy brains versus woman brains. And many years ago, I was in a conversation, Ellen will know the people involved, with a Catholic sister and a Canadian psychiatrist. And it was over dinner one night at a conference, and it was before the books about spaghetti and waffles and all that sort of thing. And the two of them agreed on this. This is a fair diagram of a male brain. Now, let me say something about this. We also live in a society that keeps promoting gender neutrality, okay? I've concluded that's really about neutralizing the genders, all right? That we say to men, oh, well, you know, you're not supposed to be the defender, protector, you need your more feminine side. And we women are told we should be more competitive, you know, in the workplace and those sorts of things, all right? My kids are of the age when this was just sort of coming online. And we were told, some of you in the room will probably, you heard the same thing, you know, we should give our daughters trucks. Okay, I did. They wrapped them in blankets, they gave them names, they had parties, and they never took the truck apart. No mechanical ability caused by truck toys, all right? So our sons are 8 years apart, and the first son got a doll. And he discovered with a kid down the block that the right kind of doll makes a great football. The doll never got a name, never got a party, never got a nap, and after about 2 weeks got thrown out, all right, because it didn't look so good anymore. Son number 2 got a buddy doll. And some of you will remember buddy dolls. They're boy dolls, little coveralls, tools, the whole 9 yards. He really liked his buddy doll. And one Saturday, and this only unfurled about 3 or 4 years ago, we had gone to the grocery store, and the older siblings are babysitting, and son number 1 decided they should play a game. And it was called Sacrifice the Buddy Doll. And that's not a girl game. And I said to my son, the only thing I can say to you is, 1, I'm really sorry, and 2, in midlife when you have to go into counseling, because we all do, you have something to talk about. And he said, yes, I do. So I think there's more than the buddy story involved with his older brother, but for what that's worth, all right? But the awareness that we're hardwired early on, all right? Your brains are different than ours. When you do brain scans, they're different. We women have language and feelings, emotional centers very close together, and they're scattered all over our brain. You guys have your language on the left side of your brain, and your emotional center is near the amygdala. It's not readily accessible. So when we women say to the men in our life, tell me how you feel, and he goes, I don't know. It's true. He has to go think about it. I mean, like he has to go there to that part of his brain, access it, and then he can talk about it. But this understanding that we're different. Men are predominantly linear thinkers. There are some women who are linear thinkers, but predominantly males are linear thinkers, and predominantly we women are multitaskers. Now, why is that? Because in the old days, you guys were hunting, you were seafaring, and you had to pay attention. Because if you didn't pay attention, if you were multitasking when you were out in the woods, it is quite likely that you would become lunch as opposed to bringing lunch home. Right? If you're not paying attention, okay, bad things happen. Right? We women were living in a community with the other women. We needed to be paying attention to the children, to the environment. Okay, we were gatherers, they were hunters. And so there are some real differences. Okay? So men, for the most part, have to like go through all the boxes as they're thinking their way through things. All right? That's an incredible gift. We women cannot pay that kind of attention. We can't. We get distracted very easily. And I was out in California, and there's a man out there who runs a school from kindergarten to grade 12, and there are separate sex classrooms for every grade. And I want to say that that's a good idea because boys and girls learn differently. All right? There's a whole lot of difference here in terms of how we do things. So, for instance, we girls can follow many instructions. Okay, in kindergarten. Take out your paper, your pen, and put your name on the top of the page. We girls all do that. You guys get as far as paper. Right? Spitballs, airplanes, drawing, possibilities right here. And teachers get mad at you, don't they? So that awareness that there's a difference in how we come at things, okay? Now what this guy told me, and I've been married to my husband a long time and I did not know this, is that one of these boxes is empty. And when we women say to you guys, what are you thinking about? And you say, nothing. It's true. Okay? Yeah, I think it's actually an adaptive sort of feature because when you were hunting, one of the things that happened when you came back is you did fire gazing. And so you all sat and sort of recouped what was going on. All right? But when you think about it, it's, you know, this is a difference. Okay? This whole idea of, again, us being just the same, you know, they say, seriously, somebody talked about the fact that the reason the boys are boys and girls are girls is because we parents dressed you funny. So you boys wore blue and we wore pink and that's why we're girls and boys. And if you believe that, I've got something I want to tell you. Okay? They did this with monkeys. And little monkeys, okay, gave them a pile of toys, random, just mixed up. Okay, so there were boy toys, there were balls and trucks and blue things. And then there were girl toys, fuzzy things, cuddly things, things in pink. And darned if the monkeys didn't discriminate. All right? The boys picked the boy toys and the girls picked the girl toys. So apparently monkey parents also dress their kids funny. That's the only explanation I can offer you. But that awareness that we need to know who we are and how we think. And that it's not a bad thing to be male and it's not a bad thing to be female. That they are complementary gifts. And that's what we have to recognize about each other, all right? Now, we women, this would be a female brain, multitasking. We women can do the following. When I do this, guys go, really, you could do that? We have observed that the cat has thrown up. The toddler went out the door. Supper is burning and I have to go to the bathroom. And we can usually do that without casualties, all right? I have friends who say, I can't leave my husband with the kids and dinner. Because one or the other will fare well. Here, do you know where the kids are? Kids. Maybe next door. Look, I'm making dinner. Look at the barbecue. Look at the steak. Or vice versa. How's dinner, dear? Dinner. That's what I smell. Dinner. Yeah, okay. All right? It's just a difference in how we view things, you know? If I take you guys outside and say, find true north, most of you can find true north. Why? Because you have a little center in your brain that is very similar to the center that birds have when they migrate super long distances and always return. That had to do with hunting, and it had to do with seafaring. Because there were no signs in the woods that said, you know, Baltimore that way. You know, and on the ocean, for sure, there were none. But that ability to find your way home was really critical. I could take you women out there and find true north, and even if the sun was up, you wouldn't know. All right? Is this not true? It's true. How do men give directions? North, south, east, west, distance. Right? How do women give directions? You know where the green church is? And then there's that big tree down the block, and you make a left at the big tree. Why? Because we lived in a confined community. We all knew the landmarks. We were gatherers, so we knew where the blueberry patch was and the raspberry patch, and we knew where everything was, okay? You guys were outside of boundaries of normal earmarks of how you find your way home, okay? And when you think about this, I mean, it makes a whole lot of sense, but it's really fun to be able to recognize it. You women need to know that the men in your life, if he's reading the paper and you're talking to him, you're wasting your breath. Because his brain is turned off when he's reading. And so, I still do this to my poor husband. He's reading the paper, I talk to him. Did you hear me, dear? No. No, did you say something? Okay, so just know. It's not intentional. It's just how that brain is working. All right? Girls and boys play differently, okay? Even in language. Boys top each other. Well, my dad played professional football. Oh, yeah, well, my dad was an astronaut. Well, my dad's king of the world. Oh, well, he wins, okay? It doesn't have to be true. You just have to be able to top. We women match. Oh, I know how you feel. Even if you've never even experienced, but I know how you feel. Yeah, okay. Boys do competitive play, all right? The business that you see in boys, young boys, wrestling, pushing, shoving. You know what that is. That's determining testosterone dominance. And if you live in that community when you're a teenager, whoever the dominant male was when you're 5 is still the dominant male. Okay? That's what that pushing, shoving is about. It's about the hierarchy necessary for hunting. All right? Now, guys play competitive sports, you know, in terms of teams, in terms of those sorts of things. We girls do something different. And boys are about winning. Okay? We girls, when we do things like this. Well, I don't really like that, girl. How about we'll play house. And I'll be the mom, and you'll be the great aunt, and that'll be grandma, and you're the new baby who's not born yet. Okay? Exclusion, but not direct exclusion. All right? In the name of inclusion. All right? To appreciate this stuff is really awesome. Boys, little boys, young boys draw verbs. They draw exploding things, and bright, and colors are limited, about 6 colors, blues, grays, blacks, okay? We women draw nouns. Love, butterflies, hearts, many colors, okay? Just a difference in how we view our world, okay? Girls are more sensitive to smell. Girls are more sensitive to some type of sounds, so we will hear the baby crying, but you guys will not hear the baby crying. Even if the baby's right here, you will not hear the baby crying. But should there be a stick that snaps outside, you're awake. You are right on it, okay? It's that hunting business, okay? You had to listen for different things. And again, it's not good or bad, it's just we're different. And to be able to appreciate those things is really important, okay? There's the series of books written by a couple, Barbara and Alan Pease, P-E-A-S-E, they're an Australian couple. And these talk about, you know, the differences. They've looked at the biology, sociology, anthropology, and written sort of in a very conversant kind of tone. You know, this would be a good book to give somebody in terms of marriage prep. Okay, there's one about how men don't read maps, and I forget what women did, but anyway. But the ability to start the conversation about being different, and that being a good thing, okay? That's important for us to realize. Now, let's talk about what happened with me and my friend here for a minute in terms of this what's called menstrual synchronicity, okay? We humans, at least probably 8 out of 10 of us, maybe more, perceive something called pheromones. Okay, P-H-E-R-E or O-M-O-N-E-S. Pheromones are scent molecules of affiliation, and they are perceived by 2 pits in the septum of your nose, and they are perceived by a nerve in the brain that was only discovered maybe about 10 years ago. It sits in front of the olfactory, the perfume nerve, and it is just for pheromones. It's called nerve 0 or the terminal nerve, and this is a direct communication. Pheromones are all about relationships, okay? So if I'm a new mom and I have spent time with my baby right after it's born, if you blindfold me and take me into the nursery and let me sniff the babies, I'll pick out my baby by scent right away. I know what a baby smells like. My baby, if you give it an option between mother's breast pad and a stranger, will always turn to the mother's breast pad. That early, we already recognize this. You fathers would recognize your baby within 24 hours if you were with the baby, but not by scent, by touch. Because you're better at that kind of touch discrimination than we women are. You would already know the feel of the back of your baby's hand. You would very accurately pick out your baby. All right? The scent thing comes later, but the first one for guys is touch. So this awareness of what's communicated here, all right? Now, we women, this menstrual synchronicity thing, that's what was going on with me and Joan, was first identified, well, really researched by a woman at the University of Chicago whose name was Martha McClintock. And Martha had observed that women in the dorm cycle together, all right? And she was going to test this. And then a friend of hers said, oh, wait a minute, there's more to this. I'm an alpha female. She goes, what? An alpha female? What do you mean? She goes, well, women cycle with me. I've observed this, that, you know, if I enter a group of women within a short period of time, they're all on my cycle. Well, this was even better. You can collect pheromones, you wear the same t-shirt for 3 days and nothing scented, okay? And you can extract it. So what she did was she had alpha woman wear a t-shirt for 3 days, several t-shirts over time. And then she took the pheromones, and she had two groups of women who did not know each other and did not know alpha woman, okay? The women who got alpha woman's pheromones within 3 months were all cycling with alpha woman, with the exception of women on the pill, because this changes it. And the other women were all on whatever cycle they started on, because they just got rubbing alcohol under their noses, and the other women got pheromones and rubbing alcohol. So this question of what's being communicated, you know, it's interesting to note that it is so finely tuned that if we are with a woman whose ovulatory cycle is close to ours but a little ahead or behind, it can throw off our cycle that month. Slow us down a day or two, speed us up a day or two. This is a dance, again, because we had to be in sync with each other in order for our children to survive. Okay, very important. So that's the first piece. Now the second piece is that God equipped us women through pheromones with the ability, when we first meet a male, to know by scent if he might be a good partner or not. But this is more complex. Women not chemically contracepting, who are able to perceive pheromones, are attracted to a male whose immune system, this is called the MHC complex, okay, is only a little like theirs. It's complementary. This is the possibility of fertility. This is why you don't marry your first cousin, right? Because if there's a genetic problem or an illness, it will show up, okay? It will interfere with fertility. If I am chemically contracepting, this changes. And I am now attracted to a male whose immune system is very much like my own, like my father, my brother. Probably because my body thinks it's pregnant, and I am now looking for a protector and not a mate. If I go off the pill, I no longer find him sexually attractive to me at all. He smells adverse, because this is not the proper match. All right? Doesn't mean you didn't love him. It just means this can really mess things up. And there are so many women who are on the pill because doctors have put them on even as teenagers who make wrong partner choices. Okay? Now, the other thing that's interesting is that women shown pictures of males, okay, no real male present, the women on the pill are attracted to a higher testosterone man. Now, all the research on high testosterone males says they're not good long-term partners. They will impregnate, but they will leave, okay? The women who are not chemically contracepting, now this is just by picture, are attracted to a male who's got adequate testosterone but isn't off the chart. He's a better long-term partner, okay? So that awareness, this changes other things. There's a man by the name of Alexander Sanger. Perhaps you recognize the last name. He's Margaret Sanger's grandson. And in 2004, he wrote a book called Beyond Choice. And one of the things, he's the one that tipped me into this business that I'm talking about right now. It's the first time I'd seen it written about in terms of this partner choice. And he says, again, this is Mr. International Planned Parenthood, that the pill is horrendously bad medicine for the human race because it has changed our reproductive history and no one told of us. All right? Because, you see, if this is my child, or if this is my partner, we may have trouble getting pregnant, and we may have trouble carrying pregnancies, and the reality is I might have some autoimmune issues as a result of that. Okay, now let me explain why that would be. We women carry cells from every child we ever conceive, probably for the rest of our lives. And it is called microchimerism. All right? These cells transferred, they can be found in the woman's body by 4 weeks after conception, and they're probably there sooner, but we can find them. We've looked. All right? They are everywhere in the body. They're in our brain. They're in our kidneys. They're everywhere. And if this is my partner, these cells appear to be reparative in my mother's body. They gather where there's a disease, all right? If this is my partner, they may be the source of autoimmune disorders in women because my children are too much like me in terms of my immune system, and my immune system cannot discriminate whether this is offspring cells or whether these are my cells and there's something slightly wrong with them, all right? Some of the first work done on this had to do with scleroderma, but not identifying it with the pill. But the pill piece is how we get the wrong partners, okay? So this awareness here. Now, but there's more to this. So if I'm a mother and I'm carrying the cells of my children, you know, where scripture said two become one, I'm carrying the DNA of my husband the rest of my life. But, now how many of you have older siblings? You know you carry their cells, right? Good news, bad news. My youngest daughter concluded that she had probably gotten the best cells of her older siblings because she was the exceptional child, and you're free to use that if it makes you feel better. All right? We mothers also pass our cells to you. And if you're born with a disability of some kind, they find that the mother cells cluster there like it's trying to fix it. Okay? There's still a lot we don't know about this. But this is fascinating. Now they're saying that potentially we carry our grandmother's cells. The mother would have passed them, okay, that they would be in mother's body through her life. She would have passed them to us also, okay? Again, that question of interrelatedness is incredible. I think that this also has to do with mother's intuition, all right? Back in the old days, we didn't have x-rays or anything. Would it not make sense that I would know which of my children was the more vulnerable in terms of disease? If that kid's sick, I got to pay more attention. That one's a little sturdier, okay? Two experiences of my own. One of our daughters was born with an invisible anomaly. And there was something wrong with this baby. I mean, she looked fine, okay, but my gut was that there was something wrong with her. And I kept saying this to the doctor, and then when she was about 4 months old, she threw an incredible urinary tract infection. Almost died. Everything was all screwed up. Of course, you're never home with your own doctor when this happens. We were in Minnesota, but the doctor who treated her was an incredibly good diagnostician. He was really gifted at this, and he said to me, this child has a kidney disorder. I don't know what it is, but there's something wrong. So we took her home, and we discovered that her kidney was blocked. And she had surgery when she was 9 months old, and there was a world-class baby kidney surgeon who said, you know, I left the kidney in because she's a girl, but she's only got 5% function at best. So some kidney's better than none when she's pregnant, but, you know, just so you know. Now, this is also a time when we were exposed to the whole concept of healing prayer with a friend of ours. But I will tell you that 1 year later, her kidney was 100% normal, and she has never had a problem, all right? But that awareness that something's wrong with this baby. I've also had the experience, one of my oldest son, I think is the one whose immune system is probably most like mine. And if he's home and his clothes are in the dryer, I swear my dad is there. I mean, it's just that, you know, when you guys are going to all think about this. I've had people say to me, you know, ever since you said that, every time my daughter comes home and I smell her clothes in the dryer, I go, oh, that's Vickie's talk. But this particular son was in Thailand for 2.5 years. And he's a journalist, but sometimes journalists are not good communicators. And so we talk to him often. How's Thailand? Fine. How's the food? Fine. How's the job? Fine. Oh, yeah, it was all fine. Yeah. No, nothing. Okay. One night I wake up and I have jaw pain. I cannot open my mouth. And I get up and I take some aspirin, and it's a little better in the morning, and by 3 days it's gone. Okay, one of those things again, what was that? So he calls home about 3-4 months later and he goes, say, by the way, did I tell you I went to the hospital? No. What did you go to the hospital for, son? Mom, I woke up and I had such jaw pain I couldn't open my mouth. And they gave me medicine, and in 3 days it was gone. Now, I am convinced that that was cellular communication. We know that twins have this referred pain all the time. And you don't have to be identical twins, just regular fraternal twins. We have friends who have fraternal twin girls, and one of them had a gallbladder attack 90 miles away from the other one. The one in Milwaukee went to the hospital with incredible pain. They couldn't find anything wrong with her, but she was really doubled over. Then the phone call came from Madison saying that they were going to be doing emergency gallbladder surgery on her sister. Once her sister had surgery, she felt a lot better. Okay? Many of us are even conceived as twins. You know, back to this question of cellular exchange. 1 in 8 of us is conceived as a twin, but our twin is lost in a little miscarriage, Or if we have something called a teratoma, which is a little tumor that has teeth and hair, that's an absorbed twin. People who have two colored eyes, that's an absorbed twin, okay? But there's this knowledge here that somebody's missing in our lives, okay? One of my daughters, I had a miscarriage, and then I had a funny bleeding episode, but I thought it was my period coming back. And then I was pregnant, and they'd given me a due date, and she was born way premature according to due date, but she was a full-term baby. So it dawned on me that there was something going on when I had the bleeding episode. Okay, same thing, you file this away. A number of years later, someone gave me an article on how often we have lost a twin, all right? And I knew, now remember, I would have cells of that child in my body, but I was like, I knew she was a twin. And I said to my husband, you know, I think she's a twin. I told a friend of mine, and I said to God, if she is, you tell her. Because she's got a miscarried sister before and a brother afterwards. And she's the child in our family that's surrounded by aborted cousins, okay, which unfolded over time, but there's a bunch of them. Okay, she's about 15. She wakes me up in the middle of the night about 2 months after I read the article, and she says to me, Mom, I was praying and I think I'm a twin. And I said, I think you are too. I said, is it a boy or a girl? She goes, it's a boy. His name is Joseph Francis. This explains to me why I'm so bonded to the brother behind me and why all my best friends have been guys. This is true. I've been looking for my brother. Okay? And I've had other people talk about this. There is a woman in England who's doing research on this right now. Her website is wombtwin.com. She's written 3 books in terms of people's experiences of this awareness of sometimes being told, sometimes not being told. But what does this mean here in terms of things like eating disorders and other issues? Okay? But that question, again, of how do we communicate what's going on here, okay? Now, men also perceive pheromones, but men perceive something different, okay? Men perceive fertility, infertility, and pregnancy. Now let's say a word about each one of those, all right? When we women are ovulating, okay, little diagram here. We have our period. We have the phase when the little follicles on our ovum, on our ovaries are preparing ovum. We ovulate here, midpoint, but not really midpoint. It's actually 12 days from our next period. We have a phase here that's called the luteal phase, and then we're either pregnant or we get our period again. All right? Now, a couple of things. The ovaries prepare the ovum 3 months before. So the ones that will be ovulated this month, they were starting to prepare 3 months ago. We women, as I said, have 400 to 450,000, and by the time we hit menopause, they're all gone. Okay? And in our lifetime, we only have 1,200 days, okay, when we can conceive a child. That's not very many. All right? Now, this first phase here, my body's preparing this. When I get to ovulation, there's good news, bad news. The good news is that we women are on top of our game when we're ovulating. All our senses work better, all right? When I'm doing talks to college students, I say this is the time to do projects because everything's working better. Because women, you all know that when you get over here to PMS City, you can't think your way out of a plastic bag, let alone a paper bag. Is that not true? That's true. All right. But nature is saying this is when you should be looking for a mate. You need to be paying attention, all right? But the bad news is that when we're ovulating, we are incredibly conditionable. And this is media effects research. And they looked at women who were ovulating and women at the other phases, and they showed them an erotic movie. One exposure to an ovulating woman, now shown that movie at any time, she will have an erotic response. The other women had a consistent response, as it was basically a stupid, dirty movie. Anthropologists say if you have sex with Mr. Wrong here, you're hooked, okay? And you know who follows Mr. Wrong number 1, Mr. Wrong number 2, okay? So that awareness of, again, how touchy this is. Now, when we women are ovulating, you guys have a biological response. Your testosterone goes up. You are more sexually interested and aggressive, okay? That's nature saying we got a little window of time here, okay? And as men, you need to recognize that any ovulating woman can create this in you. All right? And it's about making healthy choices. But think about this whole question. Well, in the next section here when I talk about infertility, I'll come back to this in a minute. But this awareness, this is date rape city potentially, because when I'm ovulating, I dress to impress. A little more décolletage, a little more makeup. You take pictures, you show them to strangers, and at a far greater than accidental rate, they'll figure out who the ovulating woman is, because we look different. I had this happen with my daughters, the two youngest ones. One of them I affectionately refer to as Miss Never Had an Unspoken Thought. And her younger sister, who was a very conservative dresser, all my daughters are pretty conservative dressers, came down one day and she had, a little décolletage and, little straps, and her older sister goes, "What are you, ovulating? Go put some clothes on." Okay, little knowledge can be valuable or a dangerous thing, however you cut it, all right? But this awareness of signaling, because the fact that any child is ever conceived and comes to birth is a miracle. There are so many things that can go wrong, okay? So we need to recognize that. Infertility. Men perceive when we are infertile, i.e. on the pill. And this is research. Some of you have heard this because Janet Smith talks about this also. But Lionel Tiger, who was at Tufts, written a lot about men's societies, thought that the pill changed men's willingness to support a child that was conceived, because it might not be his. It's an invisible sort of form of contraception. So he took a colony of monkeys to an island. It's been reproduced, and Austin was the man. And Austin was absolutely faithful to 3 of the females. He didn't look at the others. And then they put those 3 on chemical contraceptives, and he left them and he took up with 3 others. And when they put all the females in, Austin didn't do well, because the first thing that happened is his sperm count dropped radically. Then he began to rape violently and randomly, but not have consistent intercourse with any female, and he began to masturbate excessively. When they took the females off, his sperm count came back, he stopped raping, he no longer masturbated, and he went back to his first 3 consorts. All right? So men perceive this. Now think about this. I'm working in the marketplace, and my wife is contracepting. And there's a secretary who isn't. And she's making my heart go pitter-pat. And I don't feel this way about my wife anymore. And now maybe I have an infidelity. Okay? We have to understand how broadly this is out there. The other thing is that there are millions and millions and millions of women who are contracepting who no longer smell fertile. You guys are supposed to be in a culture where you're surrounded by fertile women. That's how it was for eons. And your testosterone does this, all right? And you act upon it in the proper timing and place. But you're supposed to be in this dance. You're flatlined, okay? Because there are so many non-fertile women that are surrounding you. Do we have a problem with masturbation in our culture? Sure we do. It's pornography. I am convinced those 2 things are linked, all right? We need to also understand that pornography is not about sexual satisfaction. The part of the brain that's stimulated is the part where cocaine and heroin addiction sits. And that people who are super addicted, literally when they do brain scans, have holes in their brain. And they're recoverable if you leave it behind. There is a program now, it's an online Catholic recovery program called Reclaim. That's very, very good, all right? But that awareness that things aren't working the way they're supposed to work in the culture, all right? Pregnancy. Men perceive pregnant women by pheromone, if they're with her, probably about the same time the baby cells are in her body. And now these guys undergo chemical changes. The first thing that happens is he gets more cortisol, all right? Now, that's a stress hormone, but this is a protector issue at this point. It's for him to be protecting. But the other thing that's very interesting is 60 to 90% of men, if they are with their pregnant partner, will experience something called KUVAD, which I learned at the University of Minnesota many years ago, but doctors have never heard of. KUVAD is symptoms of pregnancy with your partner. And 20% of these guys are really sick. They'll go see the doctor, and it goes sort of like this. I'm really sick. I'm throwing up. I'm nauseous. I got headaches and backaches and toothaches. I'm not sleeping well. I'm very anxious. And then he sort of mumbles that he's got food cravings and he's gained weight. And the doctor sort of shakes his or her head and says, "Gee, sir, I don't know what that is." Never says, "Is your wife pregnant?" It's a virus. It'll go away. I'll tell you when it goes away, all right? So, about 6 weeks before said baby comes, our guy undergoes enormous hormonal changes. His testosterone drops like a rock, all right? His estrogen, because yes, men do have some, goes up, all right? This is kind and tender here. Our wife and our child, we're coming close to due date. I need to be on alert, all right? And I can't be wandering and I can't be aggressive. Then he gets more cortisol, back to protecting, all right? and he gets a predominantly male hormone called vasopressin. And this is a bonding hormone. And this is one of the reasons why the concept in our society of hookup sex is such a lie. We cannot turn off our body chemistry when we engage in sexual intimacy. It's impossible. I don't care what your intentions are, your body is bonding whether you want it to or not, both as women and as men. This is an enormous issue. This right now is Mother Nature's sit-stay hormone. Do not abandon. All right? And then our father gets prolactin. What the heck is that? Yeah, it's a nursing hormone. He's got it for at least 6 weeks. And with every subsequent baby, he gets more. And he's really extra nice. All right? I tell college women, write this down. Diapers at Starbucks at midnight. And then when he gets on the other side of this, he's going to go, you couldn't plan ahead? You know? Can't you get coffee in the morning? Why didn't you think about diapers earlier? Okay? But this is a major shift. And when his chemistry goes back to normal, guess what? His testosterone never again goes as high as it was when he was a bachelor. Hardwired and changed. And in the animal kingdom, where monkeys, male monkeys care for their young, they get brand new brain cells, all kinds of them in the prefrontal cortex, the higher functioning part of the brain, and they last until the young become independent. I'm willing to bet this happens in humans, but nobody's looked. Nobody's done the brain scans, but I'm willing to bet this happens. So this awareness here, that it isn't just one person in the pregnancy, it's both people who are being changed. And that 20% who are really sick, there's something very unique about them. What's unique about them is that when the baby's born, he already recognizes tired cries versus hungry cries. He's hardwired to know the difference. Okay? So this dance, again, that's here. Now, we need to understand that there are changes that occur in our body. All right? You guys have 3 kinds of sperm. All right? This is the work of a man by the name of Robin Baker from England. There are egg getters. You'll like this. These are highly technical terms. There are blockers, and there are killers, and I think he plays rugby. All right. Okay, egg getters are the ones we're familiar with, the very sleek ones. Egg getter blockers are misshapen. All right. This is a woman's body, 2 ovaries, fallopian tubes, which do not touch our ovaries. The first place that this can go awry is that our ovum are released into our abdominal cavity. And there are little finger-like cilia that create a vacuum that pull them back into the fallopian tube. All right, uterus, cervix. All right. Now, the egg getters are supposed to get to the ovum. Those blockers sit here and they plug up little crypts in the cervix where the egg getters could get lost. All right. It's all about who wins here. Okay. And the killers are benign unless I have had multiple sexual partners as a woman, and now the killer sperm of each one of those males is activated, and it's very poisonous, and the intent is to kill the other male sperm so that they don't fertilize the egg. Okay? Think how complex that is. Now, there's another piece, and I bet you guys don't know this. Your sperm is incapable of entering an ovum unless it sits in the body of your partner for about 5 hours, and it undergoes something called capacitation. All right? Changes the way the sperm swims and changes the head of the sperm so that it is now able to enter into the ovum. That's pretty awesome when you think about it. That's why when we get involved, back to reproductive technology, we don't just throw the sperm into the petri dish. The doctor injects it because it can't do it on its own. And what's interesting is that the ovum picks the sperm. Out of all those sperm that get there, the ovum makes the decision about which one it's letting in, and there's this communication going on, all right? And one of the things that's very interesting is because we've been told that the chemistry of pot, of THC, is benign. Flat out lie. Has to do with our reproductive system, because it's very similar to a hormone that gets triggered here, all right? And the first place that this happens is in terms of, well, the first thing that THC does is make sperm pretty incapable of swimming and of entering the egg. It damages the sperm. All right? Then, when it's moving up here to meet the ovum, there's a communication going on, and the chemistry of THC blocks the normal receptor sites. If the baby is conceived, and now it's moving into the uterus, where there is a place prepared for it already, when it goes to implant, this chemistry messes with that also, all right? Whether it's the woman's body or the man, because THC stays in our fatty cells. And we have to be aware that this is an enormous issue. The other thing that we need to know is that seminal fluid is an incredibly rich fluid. And we women absorb it for 15 hours after intercourse. What's the big deal? Well, there's 30 compounds in there and a ton of hormones that change our body. And we don't know what the long-term consequences are, but we do know, for instance, that they've looked at the consequences of unprotected sex between man and woman, husband, wife, and it shows that women's depression lessens when she's had intercourse with her husband because there's dopamine and a couple of other hormones in there that are now active in her body. And as time from intercourse goes on, depression comes back. Fascinating stuff, okay? There's 13 kinds of prostaglandins. There's all kinds of chemistry in there. And this is about bonding. You can't stop this from happening, okay? You can't stop it. And for us women, it takes 6 months of exposure to the sperm of our partner. Sperm is laden with antibodies for the purpose of triggering our immune system so that my immune system says, oh, that's my partner. When we conceive children, my body goes, oh yeah, those are the kids, I recognize the whole thing. This is an issue for men because you guys are not told that your sperm and your blood do not normally meet in your body. It's a sealed system. Why is that a big deal? Because if you have a vasectomy, your sperm and your blood have now met, and it is quite likely that it will set off an autoimmune disease in you because of all the antibodies that are there, okay? Even if you get it fixed, you may well now be prone to certain types of autoimmune issues, okay? You can't fool with Mother Nature, okay? That's the important thing for us to remember, okay? Now, I want to say a few things about contraceptives, all right? Because we women are told that these are just wonderful things. You know, this is just the best medicine. We are not told that that's a systemic hormone that will impact all of my body. We put our daughters on it for acne or for cramps, and we're not told that. We are not told that there is this possibility of blood clotting, and that we should be tested for this clotting factor, and we're not told that. And I will tell you that about 3 years ago, one of my daughter's best friends collapsed on a college campus, filled with blood clots. And she was on the pill for medical reasons. But she had to die. They had to tell her. It was such a waste. It makes me so sad. But nobody told her. I was talking at a high school. I talked about this, and the parents were there at night, and this woman comes up to me and she says, oh, doctors test for that all the time. I'm thinking, really? Not that I know of. And I said, oh, well, why do you say that? Oh, well, my doctor tested, and one of my daughters has the clotting factor, and the other one doesn't, and the one that doesn't is on the pill, of course. I wanted to punch her. It's in your family. I mean, it's right there, okay? But we aren't told those things. We're not told that it causes certain nutritional deficiencies. We're not told if you're on Depo-Provera, which is a shot we like to give the teenagers, that you will demineralize your bones by 7% a year when you should be mineralizing your bones. And what are they predicting? Oh, an epidemic of osteoporosis in young women. Also, it's related to breast cancer, all right? Early use. Many issues here, okay? We're not told that it flatlines our libido. Don't we use the pill so we can be sexually free? The reality is it ruins our libido, and we may not get it back when we go off the pill. Husbands need to know that. This question of picking the wrong partner, and now I go off and I don't find my husband attractive anymore. That's a huge issue, people, okay? Enormous. Now they have discovered something that's very interesting. When doing brain scans of women on the pill, they have discovered that women's brains are now growing to look like men's brains. It has changed what's called emotional memory. If I show us women a picture of an accident, and you guys will come away with a big picture of the accident. We women will notice that there's a puppy over here and there's a fire hydrant over here. It's that fine noticing. Women on the pill see the picture as males. All right? We don't know, and the scientists say, we don't know what this could mean. All right? I think it's serious. All right? I think it's very serious. So this awareness of the impact of the pill on so many things is a huge issue, okay? And there's other health issues. I mean, there's a whole long list of things. You know, go online, put in, you know, complications or side effects of the pill. You'll find all kinds of things that you didn't know about, including gallbladder issues and some other things. We women and men need to know. We are entitled to know. Because we aren't making good decisions because we don't have enough material to make decisions with, all right? We're not told this stuff. And so it's that consciousness of what's going on in our bodies and how these things are being changed You know, the question of my husband maybe not finding me particularly attractive if I'm contracepting either. That we've broken this monthly sort of dance that's there. If we're using fertility awareness and natural family planning, we're respecting that, okay? We're just not told these things. You know, the awareness, we're seeing more and more young women with very serious breast cancer. You know, there's a twofold piece here, and one of these is that there is a correlation to an abortion in the first pregnancy. Because, all right, a biologist looking at breast cells under a microscope would tell you a never pregnant woman, an early pregnant woman, because now these cells in her breasts are what are called non-differentiated, okay? 32 to 34 weeks, the chemistry changes, and now they're what are called differentiated, and they can produce the different factors in breast milk, okay? And the end of pregnancy, people, is not birth, it's weaning. That's the last piece. Now these cells become mature cells. They give protection against breast cancer, and they never go back here. Abortions happen in this phase. These cells stay in that phase. And if there is a carcinogen, this is a weak spot in the body. And if you give me more estrogen, which you're likely to because you'll give me the pill, if I had an abortion, this is a huge factor. In a study that was done in Seattle, they looked at women who had immediate family members who had had breast cancer, and women who had had an abortion before age 18 and had those people in their lives every one of them had breast cancer very early, right? Things we're not thinking about, okay? Things we need to think about and be conscious of. I just want to add a couple of other things and then we'll take our break. You know, I find this whole reproduction thing really fascinating, and the pieces that are there. And there's a new book that came out not very long ago called Breasts, and it was written by a mom who was going to be breastfeeding, and she looked at tons of research. Two things that struck me. One, they did not realize that one of the major components of breast milk is bacteria. And there are 600 to 800 kinds of bacteria in my breast milk. And when I nurse my baby, I set up the baby's colony of bacteria in its gut. Then they discovered that there are these long-chain sugars, which they thought were about feeding the baby, but are about feeding the bacteria. And these long-chain sugars feed the good bacteria and kill off the bad bacteria, okay? Now think about this. We live in a culture where many women weren't able to breastfeed for whatever reason. Look at how many people we have with gut problems. If my mother breastfed me, she gave me grandma's bacteria, who had great-grandma's bacteria, who had, all right? So the familial colony, for want of a better term, was established. If I'm delivered by a C-section, one of the issues is that I get the hospital bacteria, because I also pick up bacteria passing through the birth canal, okay? Things we don't think about, okay? Babies born by C-section, and I'm not talking about the emergency C-section where baby's life is on the line. I'm talking about the doctor's going to play golf on Wednesday, so let's do a C-section on Tuesday. Baby's the one who sets up birth people, not mom, okay? And it's baby's chemistry. And the chemistry of birth is critical to us because it puts us into a state of stress, okay? I mean, now my heart's working, my lungs are working, okay? And when I'm born, that first hour, if I'm with my mom, if I'm on her belly, I don't know if you guys know this, if your baby is cold and you're skin to skin, your temperature goes up till the baby's temperature is stabilized, and then your temperature goes down. I mean, it's such a close relationship. But that question, again, of how do we get, you know, we don't respect the birthing process is the bottom line. There's a wonderful video that I saw some years ago called Birth in a Squatting Position. And I've used it with young women because we live in a society of pathological birth, don't we? Who delivers your baby? Doctor. No, really not. He didn't push once. Okay? I delivered the baby. He caught the baby. My doctor used to say that to me. I didn't deliver your children. I caught your children. But this awareness, so many women are terrified because we women also tell the bad stories. You know, oh God, it was so bad. I was in labor for, 17 days and, I needed whatever, okay? You've all heard the stories, haven't you? Do we hear the good stories? No, because the non-traumatized women don't talk about it, all right? But that scares the other women, okay? Women say things to their kids like, oh my God, I almost died when I had you. That was so bad. Okay, well, when I'm going to have a baby, is that right here? Well, you bet it is, okay? So this video is 5 women in Latin America. This nice doctor had gone down there to teach those women how to give birth. What did he discover? They knew how, and it worked. And so he did a video for the rest of us. And they re-edited it when they turned it into a DVD, and I don't like the new edit. In the video, you saw this mother give birth to this baby and bond. You know, whether she immediately picked it up, whether she stroked it, but you had continuity. Now we got bonding over here, and you lose the continuity of the mother. But I show this to high school women, and they do the most amazing thing. They go, oh, that can't be possible. Don't you know that everybody died in birth? Didn't it? How'd you get here? Oh, I guess somebody in my family didn't die, huh? Yeah, okay. But you know, it seems so normal. Well, birth is a normal process. We've been doing it a very long time. And what you see is that these women are in an upright position. There is a birth companion there, but she's not in your face. And you see from pushing on. And you see these mothers just be in awe. You know, some weep, some are grinning. But you see them stroke their babies, most of them. Now why? Because that's a calmer. Mother animals lick their babies to settle the cortisol, to move them to oxytocin. We need to be in oxytocin to breastfeed. Okay, I mean, you see this and you see how awesomely this whole process works. So then the girls say, yeah, but they didn't use drugs and there's no blood. Yeah, right. You notice they were standing up and not laying down with their feet in stirrups trying to push an 8-pound baby uphill against gravity? Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's different, huh? Yeah. Well, they didn't take the baby away. Well, there was no need to. It's a perfectly healthy baby. We need to spend that first hour or so with our baby, setting up breastfeeding and closeness. Really? Then they say, sure seems awful natural. Now, I know that they're going to compare that to the movie they saw in health class, which is the pathological birth model. Okay, blood, husband looking like he's going to pass out cold on the floor. Everybody's watching the monitor. Okay, I mean, it's not anybody engaging in the process. It's everybody sort of being distracted. And so I believe that by showing this to young women, and they've all seen the birthing channel too, because they'll tell you that, you know, oh, this isn't like the birthing channel. No, really, it's not, honey. Okay, they're not showing you natural births there. But this ability to empower our daughters, our granddaughters, to believe birth works. Okay, I tell you that some women are so terrified of birth, that's why they have abortions. I'm so terrified. My mother said I almost died, and it's not conscious. This is in the back of my head that birth is so awful that I won't sustain it. When I ask young men about this, I say, have you guys seen the birthing film? And they get very pale. It's great. You see the whole room go white. And then, did you see the movie? Uh-huh. What do you think? Mrs. Thorn, have you seen that movie? Mm-hmm. What do you think? I could never ask a woman to give birth. Okay? But what is that? Now my girlfriend's pregnant. And it's her body, it's her choice. I couldn't ask her to do that. We've got to be about taking away some of that anxiety there and making this a naturally occurring text, because this is about how God made us. There is no time in the life of a woman and a couple when they're so close to God as when a new baby's coming. All right? We're co-creating. It's a whole different place, but we don't talk about that. Okay? But so as we talk about these things, and we've gone through tons of material here, the awareness that one, males and females are complementary. God made us that way. We are changed by every act of sexual intimacy, whether we want to be or not. I can walk away from it, but that cannot erase what happened in my body. So you guys, you're bonding to her whether you intend to or not. We women are bonding to our males. And, you know, that's why there's so much heartbreak involved in this, because the lie is so big. Well, there's no consequence to this. You know, you can just have hookups and, you know, friends with benefits and take a hike, and that's not true. You are biologically changed by those events, and we need to be conscious of that. And I want to add one thing just quickly back to my reproductive technology thing, because I'm in the middle of talking about something. You know, we are now talking about the benefits of surrogacy because we have so many infertile people. And isn't it wonderful that we can carry a baby for someone? All right, but here's the deal. I cannot use my own ovum because I get too attached. In most states, it's illegal to use my own ovum now. All right? So I have to pay an ovum donor a lot of money $20,000 to $30,000 possibly for an ovum. And we have sperm, and it might be from the biological father that we're working with, but it might not be. But in any case, I've never had sex with this man, so my body has not made this adaptation. I am setting off an autoimmune issue here because the ovum isn't me and the sperm isn't me. And the nice doctor causes them to meet in a petri dish where he injects the sperm into the ovum, which is not how it happens in the human body. The human body, we're surrounded by all this chemistry that's going on, and the ovum is picking the sperm. All right? Now, maybe we freeze the baby for a while, but maybe not. But I am now going to carry cells from that child the rest of my life. This child is going to carry cells from me. We're not biologically related necessarily. And this child is going to pass those on to other people. And I am going to pass the cells of this child on to other children that I have, because many times surrogates are producing babies in between their own. This has got bioethical issues here that I can't even begin to describe to you. All right? Huge, enormous issues. All right? We really have to start talking about these biological issues because, you know, to have a child is a business proposition. You know, I'm entitled to the kid I want, and I'm entitled to a baby, period, whether I'm infertile or not. We've got to start addressing these issues in terms of what does this mean for everybody in this loop. This is a serious set of questions. So, hopefully, we've now stimulated lots of questions. We're going to take our break.